If you need some coins for the Trophy Titans promo, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. In today's video guys, I've got some 4222 custom tactics and player instructions for you, which I'm hoping you guys will like. But just before we get into today's video guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop this video a thumbs up, as that does really help me out with the YouTube search algorithm. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics. For the defensive style, I like to use this on balanced. This is just because it's the most controlled form of defending. You're able to press when you need to press, and you're also able to drop off and be a little bit more passive when you need to be. So balance just gives you a greater control over your defense, which is why I do suggest it. Moving on to the defensive width guys, I'm currently just using this on 40. This is so we can block the attacks through the middle primarily, as we keep a more narrow shape, but at the same time we still have that natural width to cover the wide areas and get out to the wings when we need to as well. So if you guys want to up this slightly, that's fine. If you want to lower it again, that's also fine. This is just like the average guide that I would give. Now moving on to the depth guys, I'm currently using this on 55. The reason for this is so we're not always getting pinned back by having like a super low defensive depth, and we're not always getting caught out with through balls by having a really high depth either. So 55 is just really nice and balanced, where sometimes your defensive line's a little bit deeper and other times you can win the ball higher up the pitch. I kind of like range this between like 55 and 65 depending on how I'm feeling, but 55 is what I'm using at the moment. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I suggest using balanced. This is because it is the most suited for all types of FIFA 23 gameplay. Now those of you that do play this game a lot will understand that FIFA is very inconsistent when it comes to gameplay. Sometimes you can have fast gameplay, other times you can have slow gameplay. There's so many different types of gameplays you might experience. So balanced is just the most suited for all of these types of gameplays. Something like fast build-up is very good when the gameplay is quick and responsive, but otherwise it is not, because you cannot keep up with all the movements and stuff like that. So I do suggest balanced. Moving on to chance creation guys, I suggest using direct passing. This is because it makes your attacking players bunch up against the defenders, meaning you can do the really overpowered isolation plays to score easy goals. Your players also make really good movements in the box, so you can get that extra pass off to guarantee the goals. So direct passing is just the best option in my opinion. If you don't like direct passing, you can use something like forward runs. Forward runs does like push your team very far into your opponent's half, but the problem with this is when you lose the ball, you're very prone to getting counter attack, so I just stick with direct passing. Now moving on to the attacking width guys, I'm currently just using this on about 44. The reason for this is because although the 4-2-2 is like a narrow formation, we don't want it to be too narrow, otherwise the players are like sat on top of each other, and we don't want to make the width really high either, otherwise it becomes more like a 4-2-4 and a wider formation. So I'm currently just using 44 as it's something like in between being like really narrow and really wide. We kind of just get a nice balance. Now moving on to players in box, I usually have this on 6, but I've kind of just lowered this to 5 because I noticed when I lost the ball, like if I lost the ball inside the penalty area, for example, from like a cross, it gets headed out. I never really have anyone there to pick up the ball to carry on the attack, and I get counter attack. So just having this on 5 instead of 6 means I have like an extra player outside the box ready to pick up the ball. So it has been very beneficial. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which requires both of these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the 2 striker positions I suggest going for a bit of a balance between the 2 strikers. So one of them should be like a very clinical finisher, somebody that is always going to finish off those chances, and then in the other striker position I kind of like to go for a more creative player, somebody that can do a bit more than just finish chances, just so we get a bit of a bit more variety in attack, and it makes us less one-dimensional, if that makes sense. Because if you just have like 2 out-and-out strikers, you're kind of like limited to just constantly playing them in behind and through balling and playing very basic. So having a creative player allows you to switch it up and be a bit more varied in your approach. You guys don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it's just something I would suggest. Now in the 2 cam positions, I suggest going for like winger style players. These are players with good pace, good dribbling, the players that are are agile, players that have skill moves if possible, and are able to like shoot the ball and stuff. You just need really good attacking winger style players in these positions. You're not going to want to use somebody that is super slow or clunky, because you'll find it difficult to create any like chances, because these are like your main outlets in the team. Now, moving on to the left CDM guys, I use a more defensive-minded player. This is somebody that is going to stay back, and it's somebody that's just going to add defensive security for us. So if you can get somebody with a medium-high work rate, that is super beneficial. But if you can't, just focus on getting somebody with really good defensive stats in this position. Now, moving on to the right CDM position, I go for a more box-to-box style player. This is somebody that is going to attack and defend. So I would suggest somebody with a high work rate if you can get it, so you can get the maximum contribution in attack and defense. But if you can't get that, for example, don't worry, because this Pogba is a high medium and he still works fine. So just go for somebody with like really well balanced stats, and the high work rate is like an added bonus if you can get it. Now, moving on to the fullbacks guys, in the left back position I use Roberto Carlos. This is somebody that is going to join the attack and really contribute for us going forward. And then in the right back position I like to go for a more defensive player, somebody that maybe lacks that attacking ability, but they are much better in defense. So I just like to go for that balance between the two fullbacks, but you guys don't have to do that if you don't want to. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these just need to be as good as you can possibly get them. There's really not too much to say about them. Moving on to player instructions guys, on both strikers I have them on stay central. The reason for this is because we don't want them drifting off into the wide areas. We've already got two cams that cover those areas, so we need them to stay central so they're always in the correct position where strikers should be. Now, some people have these on getting behind, but I really don't like doing that, because I feel like getting behind makes your attackers feel very disconnected from the rest of the team. So if we had them on getting behind, like these two would always be flying off looking for through balls, and then everybody else is like quite far away from them. So I don't really like that. I prefer mixed attack because they get more involved when we have the ball. They get more involved in the build-up, and you just get a lot more out of them. If you want to like throw like your more clinical player on getting behind, that is also fine. Or if you want to put them both on getting behind, that's okay, but I suggest mixed attack personally. Now, moving on to the left cam and the right cam, I have these both on get into the box for cross. The reason for this is when you have these players on balance crossing runs, a lot of the time when you get to the penalty area, they're very static. They'll almost like just watch what's going on and they won't really get involved. But when you put them on get into the box for cross, they will make the transitional runs into the penalty area to get more involved. So it is super useful for getting these involved in the attack. As for everything else on them, I don't touch them because I don't like to restrict them too much in that regards. Now, moving on to the left CDM, the more defensive-minded player, we have him on stay back while attacking, cut passing lanes and cover centre. We have him on stay back while attacking because he is the more defensive-minded player, so we do want him to stay back. We don't want him to go forward. We have him on cover centre because we want him to cover those central areas when we are defending. We don't really need him to cover the wider areas. And we have him on cut passing lane, so he's always looking to break up the play, intercept the ball and get us going on another attack, so it does work very well. Now, moving on to the right CDM, where we've got a more box-to-box style player, we have him on completely default settings and cover center. We have him on default settings because we don't really want to restrict this player too much. He is a box-to-box player, so we want him to have a bit of freedom, so we just leave him on the default settings. And then we also have him on cover center for the same reason as the left CDM, where we want him to cover those more central areas and we don't really need to worry about him covering the wings. Now, moving on to the fullbacks, on my more attacking fullback, I have him on balance attack and overlap. Now, the reason that I do this is because the 4-2-2 is obviously still a narrow formation, so sometimes we need a wider option, because sometimes if you're playing too narrow, it can be very difficult to get through and create chances, and sometimes you need a wider option to, you know, really spread out the play and stretch the opponent. So balance attack and overlap means this player is going to go and join the attack, and the overlapping run type means he's going to add extra width instead of like running narrow, so that works very well on the left back. And as for the right back, the more defensive minded fullback, we have him on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have him on stay back, so we always at least have 3 defenders back, and we also have him on the overlap run type because if we do trigger a run forward with him by pressing L1 or something, we do want him to make the overlapping runs to add extra width. We don't want him to run narrow. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, I just have them on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-2-2. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this. this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.